everyone. Welcome to the Search Bar, where we uncork the stories, strategies, and search insights that drive real results in the digital world. I'm your host, Eric Ritter, and before we get into today's episode on personal branding and PR, I want to share something that could help you finally build the marketing engine your business deserves. If your law firm or professional service brand feels stuck in marketing limbo, it's time to make a move. My Motion for Marketing Success system helps firms turn scattered efforts into strategic momentum with clear messaging, consistent leads, and a digital presence that actually generates results. It's not just a marketing plan, it's a motion forward. Get started with a Motion for Marketing Success assessment today. Head over to digitalneighbor.com/motion. All right, guys, let's dive in. Because in today's AI-driven world, your personal brand is more than positioning tool, it's a search engine signal. How do you make your brand unforgettable in a crowded digital world? Well, today I'm joined on the Search Bar by none other than the fantastic personal branding and next level PR expert, Alexis Quintal, the founder of Rosarium Collective. She's a sharp strategist, former professor, and someone who helps lawyers and leaders build real influence across every platform. Alexis, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, Alexis and I, we go way back, so we might actually get some really good questions and answers here, Alexis. I'm really excited to kind of see where this goes today, because you really focus on PR and public relations. It's getting more and more, and branding is getting more and more relevant in my world in search engine optimization, right? When we're framing this conversation in the context of GEO, which is generative engine optimization, right? That's really the future of where SEO is going, because tools like Google's AI Overview, ChatGPT, SearchGPT, they want to summarize content from trusted voices across the web. And here's the kicker. In this new world, brand mentions matter more than links. If you're being talked about, quoted, interviewed, invited to speak, you're more likely to show up on these AI-driven results. So yeah, PR is the new SEO, and personal branding is your way in. Oh, and because we always pair our topics with a great wine, today I'm sipping a 2019 Barolo from Piedmont, Italy. It's structured, elegant, and built to leave a lasting impression. Just like a strong personal brand, it's bold without being loud and only gets better with time and consistency. Awesome, cool. So let's get into it. Alexis, you've been doing this for a while, but you started off in the corporate agency world. So what really inspired you to launch your own firm?
Yeah, so I had a few really great experiences in the corporate world. I definitely am grateful for the experience that I had, right? I learned some really great skills, really dove into marketing and digital strategies. And I also learned what not to do, right? So that the agency I worked at, we were agency of record for Walmart. This was a great experience working with major brands, and we were growing fast. And when it came time for Walmart to make their own company shifts, so they shifted to an in-house advertising, agency model. And unfortunately was the downfall of the agency I was working at. So one thing it did teach me was to diversify your clients, right? Have multiple streams of income, right? Don't rely and put all your eggs in one basket. So that was definitely a learning experience, but I really appreciated working there. And then I actually shifted from there to PR, which is how I got my experience in PR at Newswire. And saw, going from marketing to PR was a big shift. And I saw what an impact PR can make. One article basically going viral can be the make or break for a company. So I was really excited to start my own firm where we combined that marketing approach, right? The lead gen, you're building out your visibility with PR, which is more of the storytelling side and using the media as a way to just gain more visibility. So
gotcha, nice.
Kind of the short version of the journey.
Yeah. No, I mean, appreciate that, right? So kind of taking those learnings into your own agency. And I want to pivot a little bit kind of here into maybe the legal space, because you've worked with a lot of legal professionals and, going into PR, going into personal branding, that can be essential for attorneys and other high trust professionals, kind of what's worked there, or kind of how do you see that playing together?
Yeah, personal branding is vital for anyone who's in an industry where you are your product, right? So I work with a lot of service providers, and legal professionals are providing a service, and they have to build that trust with their client, right? They're not selling a product that the product itself, kind of has that credibility. No, you have to build your credibility. So personal branding is so key for legal professionals that have a lot of competition in their space, right? There's a lot of different options. So what makes them stand out? And by being a little bit more open to sharing their own journey, maybe some challenges they've overcome, some really great success stories, these can all be part of their personal brand and that story that they tell. And, it's more important than ever that they have social media and, they have an online presence. And so your personal brand is, of course, what will show up on social media. And when someone Googles you or even searches ChatGPT for, best legal professionals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's becoming more important than ever.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, right? Because it's becoming more and more where you show up and how often you're mentioned, right? And so just curious, in your experience, what do you see kind of, because legal professionals, a lot of times they kind of struggle, just showing credentials, but what's the difference really between just showcasing your experience or your, let's say your bar memberships and actually building a personal brand?
Yeah, it is more. It's more than just those credentials, right? You had to go to law school. You had to pass the bar. Of course, you had to do all those things, and I'm sure it was very difficult. I'm not obviously meaning that, but
Yeah.
But thought leadership is what kind of came to mind when you were asking that question, right? So being a thought leader is someone who's an expert in what they do. They are leading and paving the way in their industry. They are, the go-to when you have a question, when it comes to whether it's the legal industry or something else. So this is what they could lean into even more to really stand out, is to become a thought leader, pick what are the main kind of themes or topics that they want to be known for. And the media is where the PR side comes in. So the media is looking for thought leaders. They're looking for experts that have this, have the background, have the experience, can tell that story and provide, factual information. So by putting yourself out there as a thought leader, you can get covered in the media for free. A lot of people don't realize that. It's not something you always have to pay for. It's something where they actually need your help writing an article, right, and they're not a lawyer themselves. And, things come up in the world or in business where you need to have that legal background and understanding. So that's where I think they could really stand out, is just focusing in on being a thought leader.
No, I love that, and that's a great way, like we've been talking about, right, kind of getting front and center, is positioning yourself as that thought leader in order to get those opportunities. So maybe let's pivot a little bit more into PR, right? Mm-hmm. Or public relations, as some people call it. Do you prefer PR or public relations, Alexis? Which side of the camp do you sit on?
PR is just easier to say, right? Like flows off the tongue. But some people, someone asked me if I meant Puerto Rico. So sometimes it's better to say the full term. So
depends on the context, I guess, right? Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Cause I'm really entrenched in the SEO versus search engine optimization camp, right? Like, cause to your point, it just rolls off the tongue. No one wants to say search engine optimization. Everybody just wants to say SEO.
Yeah.
So makes sense. So let's talk more about, kind of modern PR maybe. How do you at Rosarium, Alexis, help your clients, let's say an attorney, turn maybe their expertise, right? It can be very complex into something that actually creates content that resonates with people. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like how you said modern PR, because traditionally, PR was, and the other thing it stands for, press release, right? It was that traditional,
there you go.
You're a Fortune 500 company, whether it's like stock market updates or, a major shift in the company, that's where PR came from, right? It was major companies putting out press announcements, and that's how they communicated with the public, right? That's how they built that relationship with the public. So
it's a one-way communication, right? It's very unilateral, right? Like, here's my release, enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really fun to read either. It's usually just very black and white. So what I love about modern PR is it is more about storytelling. it's less about press releases. It's more about thought leadership, like we discussed. It's more about, it's not necessarily that you're selling or pitching anything through your PR. It's just that you're sharing valuable information, right? You're putting out your brand message. You're telling your own story and the journey of where you are today. And there's a lot of different platforms to do that. Social media is basically like your own press platform, right? It's every post you could think of as a press release. You have that ability to control the narrative, to control what impression people have of you and your brand just based on what you post on social media. So, that's an easy, free platform that you can use to build your brand.
Yeah. And I know we're not getting political here, but just real quick, right, is I find it fascinating, that the current president, there's no press releases. Everything is posted directly on social media from him for people to consume, right? So it doesn't go through any filters or anything else. So, that's just a point there that it can be used directly. If you have a point of view or something you want to share with your to people, you just post it for your followers and it doesn't need to be disseminated by anyone else.
Exactly. That's modern day PR.
Yeah. That's too funny. So you're a former professor, I heard. And you bring a teaching mindset potentially to work. So how does that potentially help you when you're guiding clients? You get an attorney through that branding process.
Yeah. So before I really got into marketing, I was a professor at USF and I was teaching in the advertising department. So
that's how we met. Fun fact.
I know, right? We were both in the same department. And so that has really helped me. I think it's helped me be more thoughtful, also just, empathetic. And it also has helped me just with communication with my clients.
Yeah. So that makes so much sense, right? Especially as brand mentions, right, which can be from your personal brand, are a stronger predictor of inclusion in AI overviews or in AI search engines than backlinks have been historically, which is huge, right? So PR and SEO, we've always talked about how they've, kind of gone together, but now they're almost like peanut butter and jelly, right? PR and SEO are no longer separate.
Absolutely. I know.
Yeah.
They really do
so
go hand in hand.
It's an interesting world, right? So let's talk more maybe about the, we kind of got into that new media landscape a little bit, with social media, et cetera, right? But I know speaking engagements are a really big credibility tool, right? So what makes a legal presentation engaging, especially in the age, of TikTok, right? Where we have really short attention spans.
Yeah. I'd say with any presentation, of course you have to know your audience and kind of understand what are they looking to get out of this. So is it a conference that, specific to lawyers? And so at that point that's where you can really show your thought leadership, right? What is the topic that you kind of have that future viewpoint on, that you could start kind of paving the way, sharing that story, sharing that credibility. And, so that could be something really interesting. But what if it's just maybe it's a local conference for entrepreneurs, right? So that would be a little bit of a different presentation, maybe not so specific on the legal jargon, because a lot of people won't be able to follow, right? So you have to know kind of how, specific to get with your audience. And I think the more engaging, the better, right? Asking questions, and, maybe hosting a workshop, having a worksheet available where people can take notes and participate. In a world where people have very short attention spans, I think the more engaging you can have your presentation be, the better. But being up on stage is a really great way to quickly build credibility. It's a new kind of modern form of PR.
No, I think that's great advice, right? Kind of finding an event that you can speak at. But what about someone who's just getting started, right? If you're a young associate or solo practitioner, what's maybe a step they could take to build up that media presence and get on that stage and get a speaking engagement?
Well, podcasts are a great kind of stepping stool when it comes to right building your way towards speaking. It's good practice. It's great you can make clips and you could even turn it into like a speaker reel. And, now you've got some, you've got the clips and, to show I'm a good speaker, you're engaging on a podcast. So I think that's a great stepping stool. Radio could be something as well, maybe even video content. The more comfortable you can be just kind of talking, and even if it is to a camera or to a screen, that's a stepping stone to speaking engagement when you're on stage in front of hundreds of people, right? And you probably don't necessarily want to jump to that anyway. You need to practice and build your way there.
Right. Yeah. So what's your tip to get on a podcast, right? Like, how do I even go about that if I have no idea where to start?
Yeah. Well, I think you and I can relate. We're both podcast hosts, right? And if someone reaches out to me and is like, listen, I've been listening to your show, it's, really interesting, I would love to be a guest, I would probably most of the time say, yes, I would love to have you, because I like that they took that extra step. And obviously they've been listening and they found it interesting. So I think, similarly, you can reach out to the host of your favorite podcast, or, one that's really growing in your industry, and just ask to be a guest, right? The worst they can say is no, maybe they're booked, fully booked with guests, but most of the time.
I think that's great. I love fan mail, right? So send me an email, try to get on my show. It's very flattering, right? Probably for you as well, Alexis. I'll probably pretty much have anybody who wants to be on, right? I probably shouldn't say that. But if you show interest, you say you've been a longtime listener, ready to be a guest, on that show, people are more likely to say yes than no, quite frankly. So I think Alexis has a great point there. Podcasts, there's so many great podcasts out there, right? It's not like back in the day, we had 3 TV networks. Now we got cable, got 100 cable channels. Now we literally have thousands of podcasts. So there's no excuse not to get on a podcast out there.
And again, these tools we're talking about are free. Like, I think people hear PR and they think it's very expensive, and they're not ready for that. But I mean, your social media is free. Like, building your online website presence is free. PR can be free. Podcasting is free. Yeah. It doesn't need to be expensive, but you do need to be consistent with it.
Yeah. And that's a great point, right? Consistency, I think, is key, because it can be time consuming, right? So be ready to invest, be ready to spend time for that personal branding, because it's going to pay dividends down the road. And just a closing thought kind of on that, to get a little bit on the technical nerdy side here, right? Is, from the SEO, I am the SEO sommelier after all, right? Is that every talk, every podcast, every panel appearance is going to get you a mention online. We call that a structured mention, right? So the AI is going to crawl that website. They're going to see, oh, look, Alexis Quintal spoke at this. She was on this podcast. She was mentioned here, right? And that's exactly what AI is looking for when they summarize your expertise. Like, oh, Alexis spoke at these 12 panels, or she did these 2 keynotes, right? Those are really important to build your SEO or your generative engine optimization, your GEO as well. So let's get into a checklist, right? We've talked about a lot of different things here, Alexis, and kind of those personal branding essentials, right? I think I hammered at home. It's important for your SEO and GEO, right, in the future. But where do you go? Where do you start? So I know you're kind of really an expert on this. So you put together a checklist here. So it's something that listeners, viewers can use right away to build their brand and boost their future search visibility. So if you can walk us through those 5 different points, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to. So these are definitely 5 steps you can take to get started right away. A lot of it, like I mentioned, is not very expensive. So it's something that you can start today. So the first step would be to clarify your core message, right? So the why. Who are you? What do you stand for? What's the value that you offer? Because this is what AI and even humans will understand and remember you by, right? So
you don't want to confuse people, right? So you want to have one clear message as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a challenge a lot of entrepreneurs have, especially when they feel like they do offer so many different things, right? It's hard to narrow in, but the more you can specify and clarify your message, the better results you'll get.
Couldn't agree. Do you have any tips on maybe how to clarify that core message? If I'm kind of, hey, I got 3 or 5 different people I want to talk to, 3, 5 different messages. Do you have a tip on how I could get to that core message?
Yeah. A lot of times it comes down to almost like workshopping with yourself. It's it's a moment to kind of get deep, really think about, who you are and what you want people to remember you by. So, and sometimes that takes time, right? It's not something you're going to just come up with overnight, but the more you're able to kind of write these things down, kind of workshop them with yourself, you'll probably find there's something that overlaps all those different areas. Like you said, you have multiple target audiences, or, multiple topics that you really want to speak to.
Right.
As you're kind of workshopping and brainstorming them, what is the overlapping factor there? That's your it factor, right? That's what makes you unique. So take some time and really think about it, have some conversations with people that know you well. And you may have like an aha moment where you realize this is the key message.
Yeah. Which one's going to connect with your core target audience, right? Like what are they going to care about really? I think because a lot of times I like to look at, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's step one. So then step two, really get comfortable leveraging earned media. So earned media is basically free media. It means you're not paying for it. So it's not a press release. It's not a sponsored ad or, with ad placement. This is thought leadership style media. And so that's where you can use podcast interviews. You can submit guest articles. You can set up events and create authority and mentions that will fuel your GEO, your SEO, and just overall your personal brand story. So these are all platforms that anyone has access to as long as you've got Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly. It's those structured mentions, right? So that can be, I was talking to someone the other day and they said, social media is a love letter to Google and the search engines, right? Because the search engines and the AI, they're crawling everything, including your social media, and just seeing what's happening there. And if you're really active, they can see people are interacting, they're sharing, et cetera. That is a great way to leverage kind of that earned media. Is having other people talk about you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Perfect. So then step three, tell personal stories with purpose. And so this is where obviously personal branding, the word personal is in there for a reason, right? Like we're all individuals who have families and, things that we've experienced that maybe were traumatic. We've also had like the best days of our lives, so the more you're willing to humanize yourself, both online and offline, and even humanizing your expertise, right? Like what about your background is what makes it easier to connect with you and understand. I also tell people like, make it so simple that the next person you tell could almost like playing telephone, right? Could they tell the next person what you do and who you are and what you stand by? So, a lot of that just means, again, clarifying that message and simplifying it, but also making
keeping
it
short, right? People aren't going to remember a 12 slide deck about you. They're going to remember one thing, right? So that's such a good point, is keeping it simple and thinking, what is that core message, which comes back to number one. I think that's a great tip, Alexis.
Yeah. And that's how you can continue to build equity with your brand, having them be purposeful stories or even, your expertise can be turned into a story, right? It's almost like you're writing a novel on what it is that you do on a day-to-day.
Yep. Makes sense.
So then step 4, and I mentioned this before too, is to be consistent. I know that's a lot of times the challenging piece, right? You're being consistent for a few months and still not seeing the results. And so a lot of people do give up too soon, right? So really have to be dedicated and be consistent and across multiple platforms. So you've got, your LinkedIn or your social media presence, you've got your on stage presence, you've got the way you introduce yourself, your elevator pitch. And I'm mentioning things that are both online and offline for a reason, right? Like these things all need to be consistent with each other as well. So that way your story is aligned and you're not causing confusion, which could confuse even AI. So the more you can be consistent with your, with your bio and your personal story, that will really help.
No, absolutely. And you want to make sure that people know they're following the right person. Like, hey, I really like Alexis on LinkedIn. Is this really her Instagram? It looks totally different, right? So if you're trying to build that persona, make sure that it's the same everywhere so that wherever someone finds you, they're like, oh yeah, I know Alexis. Let me follow her here as well. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The best compliment you can get too that I got in someone was that I have the same kind of energy and, personal brand online as I did in person. So that's obviously the goal, right? You want to be authentic to yourself. So if you are, then it should be consistent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then number 5 is to always add value. So this is where you can lean into the thought leadership, share tips and information, whether it's a blog or social post, or it's your next keynote presentation. You always want to educate people, inspire them, clarify your message, and that's how you build trust.
I love that. Right. And so I'll tell a quick story here. When I first started kind of the digital marketing field, blogs were still kind of a newer thing. And so we kept talking about, hey, we should write blog posts about what we do and tell people and show them. And our boss was like, no, don't do that, because then people are going to read it and they're going to steal it and they're going to do it on their own and they're going to do it themselves. Right. And that's kind of that old school mentality where you just really, you really want to protect. And there's some things you want to protect, right? Like the recipe for Coca-Cola, the secret sauce for KFC, right? So those are things that you don't want to share, right? Because then someone's going to copy them. But if you really want to add value, share with people your process, right? If you're a lawyer or attorney, what makes you different, right? What do you do in the courtroom that's different? How do you treat your clients differently? Scream it from the rooftops, right? Because that really adds value to others that they can understand. Maybe there's some small tips, that you can give people that will then make them trust you more, because they're getting educated and they're going to be more likely to reach out to you. So don't have the mentality of my old boss at that digital marketing agency. Be open with what you do, because if people want to work with you, they're going to trust you much more, right? Because at the end of the day, they're going to be too busy, right? They're not going to be educated enough, and they want to trust someone there. Or even if you keep sharing things, maybe you get to the point that you can start selling courses about it, right? Who knows where it can lead? So just make sure you're always adding value. Yeah. So great
information
point,
is valuable. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing your checklist. I think that was super helpful. We'll add that in the show notes. We'll also add all the links we mentioned today. And I just want to give a huge thank you to Alexis Quintal for joining me today. If you want to learn more about Alexis, her work, how she helps professionals and brands grow with clarity and purpose, visit rosarium.work and follow her for great insights. I'm sure we can find you on LinkedIn and Instagram, Alexis.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So don't be afraid to search. We're going to put in the show notes as well. And if this episode got you thinking differently about your marketing, personal brand, or visibility, don't just sit on it. Head over to digitalneighbor.com/motion and get your Motion for Marketing Success assessment. Let's get you moving in the right direction. And finally, the Barolo, still delivering. Just like a strong, well-earned brand. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow the show, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who's ready to own their story and optimize their visibility. Until next time, grab your glass, claim your story, and let's build something unforgettable. Cheers.